What's up, people? It's your boy Zeph here, and yeah, I'm just gonna touch on a few things, mainly regarding the law of God and obedience to the law. Obedience to the law is how we get life. I mean, it's that simple. Everybody makes this thing so hard, but obedience equals life, and disobedience equals death. It's been that way from the beginning. Adam and Eve sinned. What did the Most High say would happen? They would die. And we still die. Day after day after day. Everybody's dying. Why? Because sin and death through sin from one man spread to the whole creation. That was the purpose of Christ. But a lot of people don't seem to get that. They think Christ came to destroy the law, and they think that they're free to do whatever they want, or they're free, you know and they have no obligation to keep the law because Christ did it perfectly. That's what a lot of people seem to think. And just yesterday, I had a female block me on Facebook because she was offended by my posts. First off, she posted something blasphemous yesterday. It was a book that she was reading, and the book was, it was off. I mean, it was basically making the point that people just need to follow Jesus, and no rules or regulations need to be attached to that. And that's just completely blasphemous in light of what the scriptures say. So, that got me riled up. I wasn't attacking this sister personally or anything like that, but it got in my spirit, and I started posting. Whatever the spirit gave me to say, I wrote it down. It wasn't like I was attacking her personally, but she came on my post after I had commented on her post, making the point that, and I basically exposed what she said and made her look very, very dumb. Let's just say that. I mean, I asked her straight up because she was, all this no rules, stuff. And so she came out herself and said, yeah, we shouldn't sin purposely because we have grace. Now, I define sin from the scriptures, and according to 1 John 3:4, it says sin is the transgression or the breaking of the law. That's what sin means. So the opposite of breaking the law is keeping the law. So, if we're not sinning, then we're keeping the law. We are obliged to keep a law. That's a rule, isn't it? Isn't a law a rule or commandment the same thing, right? So what she said was completely contradictory. It made no sense. And another thing is people really get confused when they read Paul. And I mean, that in itself is it really is something, because even Peter in their time, he told you Paul wrote things which were oftentimes difficult to understand, even in their time. And we got translations in these times, and we think we can just understand Paul without any trouble, huh? That's what a lot of people seem to think. And so you have stuff that Paul says, like, we're not under the law, but we're under grace. A lot of people read that right there and they stop. We're not under the law. We don't have to do anything. That's what they believe. We're not under the law, but they don't even understand the simple message in that. They don't understand what that truly means, being under the law. When they read we're not under the law, we're under grace, they take that to mean we are not obliged to keep the law because of grace. But no, it doesn't mean that at all. It's very literal in its meaning. Very literal. When it says we're not under the law, you picture something here and you picture something here. When you have someone who is under the law, you have the law ruling over that person. And if the law is ruling over someone, that means they are a slave to that ruler. And if you're a slave to the law condemns you to death. So if you're under the law, you're condemned. But if you're underneath grace, the grace covers you like a blanket, hides your sin, and you're good. But of course, people think that once they've been baptized and whatnot, they think that it's over. They're done. They're saved. They don't have to do anything. But when you read what Paul says in Hebrews, what's that, 10:26, if we sin willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there remains no more sacrifice for sins. So that means it's not over. It's not over. You can still sin and lose out on salvation. He went on to say, fiery indignation is all you have to look for if you sin after having received the knowledge of the truth. So how can a person be saved if there's still a chance that they could sin and fall away from the truth? How can they be saved? Furthermore, Christ told you, he that endures to the end shall be saved. So how are people claiming to be saved? But let me basically get back on the topic of the law and the simplicity of the law. Like I said, obedience equals life, disobedience equals death. And Christ did not come to free anybody from obedience to the law. That's ridiculous to state that. He came to free people from the penalty of breaking the law, which is death. Everybody earned that automatically through Adam. So there was no way anyone could live forever after Adam and Eve had sinned and spread that death to all creation. Everlasting life was lost. So Christ is very important. If you want everlasting life, you need to accept Christ, but not only accept Christ, you have to be obedient. And Paul makes that very clear. Everybody wants to go to Paul's writings to try and dismiss the law. But if they really understood Paul, they would understand that he's not saying anything even close to what they think he's saying. He's establishing the law. In fact, he tells you, Romans 3:31, do we make void? When he says make void, means do we make the law of nothing? Do we cancel the law through faith? Through faith in who? Through faith in Christ. We can't accept Christ and just get rid of the law. That's not how it works. We can't do that. He says, do we make void the law through belief or faith? He says, God forbid. No. On the contrary, we establish the law. What does it mean to establish something? It means to uphold it, bring forth. So how can anybody read Paul and say that he's not for the law? Or he's not for being obedient to the law? I'm going to read something else for you that Paul said that is, it's plain. Because like I mentioned before, everybody always gets all caught up on the fact that we're not under the law but under grace. But you got to understand what that means. Remember, they always get caught up on that. And then Paul says in let's see, what's that? Romans. Let me find that scripture. I believe it's Romans 6:15 through 16. It says, "What then? Shall we sin?" Which is breaking the law. We define that according to 1 John 3:4. It says, "What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law but under grace? God forbid. Don't you know that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness." Obedience unto righteousness. That's telling you right there that you need to be obedient to obtain righteousness. Now some will say, well, Christ is our righteousness, so no, we can't do anything to become righteous. We never did anything to even deserve grace. So of course, nothing we could do got us or allows us to be declared righteous. It's through Christ, his sacrifice, because like I said, everybody was automatically lost with Adam's sin. So of course we need Christ, but we have to remain obedient with that sacrifice. We have another chance with that sacrifice. We have to be obedient. We can't just accept Christ and not continue striving to keep the law and be obedient to the Most High's commandments. We can't do that. It doesn't work like that at all. I mean, this thing is so simple. Isaiah 28:9-10 says, whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. I mean, this thing is all laid out for you. It really is. It says, wherefore, this is Romans 5:12. Wherefore, as by one man, Adam, sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. Everybody has sinned. Why do you think Christ said, why do you call me good? There's none good but the Father. Christ was perfect. There was no sin in him, but even he was a man. Okay, he was God also, but he was a man. Okay, he was the only one that could reverse that whole, situation that Adam got man into. He was the only one. And one thing that people don't understand also is the fact that Adam didn't have any mother or father. His father was the Most High, because he came forth from the dust of the ground, which actually Christ created. So he didn't have an earthly father. Christ did not have an earthly father also, but that's a topic for another day. But anyway, let me read some more of this. Revelations 20:12-15. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. See, that second death, people don't understand. They don't even know that there's a second death and a first death. See, when your body dies, that's not it. Christ can raise you up and kill you again. That's not it. So when you have everlasting life, you can be raised into life eternal. But if you have the second death, you're gone completely. There's no coming back for you. You don't have a chance to live again. You're done. So that's what Christ saved everybody from. He didn't save you from having to be obedient to the law. That's ridiculous. Why would anyone say that? Revelations, what's that? 22:14. Blessed are they who do his commandments, for theirs is the right to the tree of life. The tree of life was lost in the beginning. Through Christ, we have a chance to get it back. And I'm almost going over time here. I'm going to have to make me another video, a part 2. But it's all good. But like I said, we lost that access to the tree of life, which is living forever, through Adam's transgression. So we needed Christ to reverse that. Through Christ, we can get access to that tree of life and living forever. But notice it said, blessed are they who do his commandments. You still got to keep the commandments. Also, Revelations 12:14 says, here's the patience of the saints, them which keep the faith of Christ and the commandments of God. You got to work together. That's why James 2:20 says, faith without works is dead. You can't have one without the other. Faith must be accompanied by works. Stay tuned to part 2.